welcome back to Shine Like a Diamond. Hope you guys are all having a great day. I don't know why this seems like it's crooked, but it's I don't know. Anyways, it's giving me problems today. That's alright. It'll have to just do for now. I am working on Blue Zion, as you can see. And at the moment, with the way my camera's recording anyways, it looks like it's right side up for you. I have it upside down for me because that's how I usually actually do my paintings. I will start it upside down and get the first section on the half, or the first part on the top done, and then I'll flip it over because I don't want to have the finished piece area hanging over my lap. I would rather flip it around and have the unfinished drill hang over like this onto my lap, because I don't want, you know, the part where I finished it on my lap and possibly getting messed up. So that is how I do it. I also keep a pool noodle on the edge of my table so that it is not on a hard edge. If I do have it on here at all, like I do right now, it's not being damaged because it's just laying over this the bump. And also when I sit, it is more comfortable for me. You know, it's just nice. So if you haven't, I got this table from Michael's, and I really like it. It is, you know, it tilts up, it does all that fun stuff. And I know it's a really common table for diamond painters to use. So if you ever have a problem with the edge, a pool noodle is great. You just cut it down the middle. Maybe I'll do a video on showing you how to do that. Anyways, so because it does make it a lot nicer, more comfortable, better for your canvas if you do put the canvas over it at all. So, which for me, I do a lot of canvases that are big. I mean, I do some small ones too, don't get me wrong, but I do quite a few big ones as well. So, yeah. Oh, jeez. Okay. Anyways, this is Blue Zion. I am working on this one for my daughter. Really wants this one put up in her room. This one, she watched the movie Avatar with me within the last like 6 months. She's 10 years old, so I've seen it numerous times, and so she watched it with me, and she really enjoyed it. She said, you know, it's one of her favorite adult movies. So, which, you know, it's not like there's not anything super inappropriate or anything in the movie, but anyways, so yeah, we watched it together, and it was fun too, because this is like one of my favorite movies. I saw it in the theater 3D, and it was like one of the best movies I've seen 3D. If you've seen Avatar, it is beautiful scenery in the movie, with all of the way the plants are and everything. It is absolutely gorgeous, and I really liked seeing it in 3D in the theater. Now, is it as good on DVD? No, but is it still good, worth seeing? I bought the DVD, yeah, so I have the DVD. It's just a good movie. It really is. It's a long movie, but it's a good one. So today's video will not be very long. I have kind of a sore throat today. I don't know why. And I'm kind of losing my voice. So, yeah, probably won't be a very long video today. But, nonetheless, I still wanted to get one out to you. So I hope you guys are having a good day. It is Throwback Thursday. I can't remember if I already said that or not. It is, what time is it? 5 a.m. here. And I was already up because my daughter had a low blood sugar. So I was already up, and I figured, hey, I will get the video recorded so that I can get it produced and uploaded to you guys at a decent hour. So, yeah. Anyway, let's see. Okay, so what I decided I would tell you about. So last week I touched on, I was talking about my most memorable 4th of July, which was the one where I found out I was pregnant with my son. And that was a surprise. We had been married for 3 months, and we were not like trying to get pregnant or anything, but we weren't really doing, anyways, it was a surprise. We'll just say that. Because we'd only been married 2 months. I was in school, to be a medical assistant. And anyway, so I thought I would just, talk about my pregnancy and then when I had him. So, as I already said last week, I found out I was pregnant on July 4th, woke up that morning, and I am like to the hour, usually regular, and I didn't have cramps, and I have endometriosis, and so those of you who don't know what that is, it causes you to have extremely bad cramps, and there's some other symptoms too that I won't go into. But anyway, so I usually am, in a lot of pain, and for at least a day. And I didn't have cramps at all that morning. I thought it was really weird. So I had taken a pregnancy test and found out I was pregnant. So we went to my mom's, my grandma's, and told everybody at the fireworks show that we were pregnant. So I went over that last week. And so yeah, he, being that it was my first pregnancy, you hear stories, you read books and all that stuff, but there is so much people don't talk about, nor do they talk about in books almost. It's like there's this little secret, I don't know. Anyways, so, you think you know what to expect because you've read the books and you've heard stories from your friends and family and all this stuff. And for me, anyways, it was like, it was a lot of surprises, I guess you could say. But I had morning sickness with him, but it was more afternoon, more for me. And the funny thing is I've said this before, whoever came up with it, who called it morning sickness, was a freaking liar. Because I know from his, my pregnancy with him, and then my daughter was like all day. So, and I know a lot of people who would back me up on this, that it is not morning sickness. It is all day sickness. It is afternoon sickness, night sickness. Yeah. So anyways, with his pregnancy though, I was sick, but not horrible, at the beginning of it. Only got sick a couple times, and, at about 11 to 12 weeks, I was, feeling a lot better. 13 weeks, it was pretty much gone. And, the second trimester was, no problems really. I had, been told previously that I was probably not going to be able to have kids because of some of the issues that I have, not even, something is called polycystic ovarian syndrome. And a lot of people who have that, and then you add on endometriosis, and then you also add on that my uterus shape is called a bicornuate uterus. So instead of having a uterus that is shaped like oval, like most people's, mine is like this. So it's like a figure 8. Some people actually have 2 uteruses. I don't. Mine is just like this. So baby can really only grow in one side of the uterus, which causes some complications. And so, yeah, I was told that, I might not be able to have kids at all. So when I got pregnant with him, I was very pleased, very blessed. It happened very quickly, which is out of the ordinary for those health issues. So yeah, anyways, but most of my pregnancy was easy in the beginning, and the second trimester was fairly easy. And then I hit 30 weeks, and I started to have some cramping going on and stuff, but they say, at some point that is normal because your uterus is stretching, and so you can have cramping and stuff. It's not uncommon. But at 32 weeks, I went into the doctor for my normal appointment, and I had noticed I hadn't really felt him moving. Let me backtrack real quick. At my 18-week appointment, you have an ultrasound, and yet my husband didn't necessarily want to find out the sex of the baby. I, on the other hand, did. And so we decided we would find out. Because this was my first. I wanted to be, my reasoning for it was I want to be prepared. I want to know what I'm having because I want to, be able to get the pink or the blue or whatever. So we did find out, and back then there really wasn't like gender reveal parties like they have now. But we were having family dinner that night. I don't know if it was planned around finding out or not, but it was fun because the night that we found out, we did have a family dinner, was able to tell everybody. But my grandma, so funny. So my grandma came with us to the appointment. My mom and my grandma both came with us to my ultrasound appointment. And so they were in the room, and the tech is, doing her normal stuff. They got to go through, check this, check that, measure this, measure that, make sure everything's good. And then they ask, do you want to know the sex of the baby? And let me take a drink. 1 second. Okay, so anyways, they ask if we want to know the sex of the baby. Of course, we had already decided yes, we're going to find out. So we tell her yes, we do. And so I had, since I was 13, had always said if it was a girl that I was going to name it Madeline, because that is my grandma's name, and I've always loved that name. And so she knew that if it was a girl, I was going to name it Madeline. So, and if it was a boy, we had decided on Seth Alexander, and he would go by Alex. So the text says, okay, so she's looking and she says it's going to be a boy. And, I really, honestly, I didn't care what I was going to have. As long as it was happy, healthy, I was fine with either one. But my grandma, she says, well, shoot. She kind of says it under her breath. And I was like, Grandma, and she goes, no, I'm so happy. She says, I was just looking forward to having it have my name. And, so, we're like, well, Grandma, this is the first, so don't worry, I'm sure we'll get there. We'll have a girl later, but she was super happy. It was just kind of funny because just, her involuntary first reaction was, well, shoot. But yeah, so we had a little thing that night where we got to tell all of our family, my aunts, uncles, and stuff like that. And so yeah, we were really excited. And my grandma makes baby blankets. She does quilts and all that. So me and my I was put at 32 weeks. I went into my normal doctor appointment, like I said, and I had told her I hadn't felt him he hadn't been moving much that day. And normally he was pretty active. And so she was a little concerned, so she sent me over to the hospital monitored. They hook you up to, you know, these things that go around your stomach. It's like a belt almost. And it measures like your contractions and all that stuff. So they hooked me up to that and found out, oh yeah, he's fine, he's moving, his heart rate's good, all that stuff. And I'm just about ready to be let go when they realize that I am having contractions. And they asked if, you know, I was in any pain, and I was like, not really. I said I've been having cramping though for a couple weeks, but nothing, you know, nothing too bad. So they decided, well, we're going to keep you here for, you know, a couple hours and just monitor these contractions. So they did. Well, the contractions got worse and worse. And they basically had found out I was literally going into labor at 32 weeks pregnant. So 32 weeks is way too early, and so they usually, what they do when you go into labor too early is they give you medications that stop your contractions and all that kind of stuff. So they did the first medication and it did not work. They tried it for a second time. It also did not work. And for some reason, I can't remember what that was. I vaguely remember it starting with a T, maybe? I can't remember. I do remember that it made me really shaky. And so after 2 or 3 rounds of that medication not working, they went with the big guns, and I believe it's the magnesium sulfate that it was, which ended up working, but the side effect of that medication for me, it was horrible. I have never felt a backache like that before. It made me throw up. It made me like to where it was kind of like blurry vision. It was just a horrible, horrible side effect. However, it did not hurt the baby, and obviously the goal is to stop the pregnancy because the baby's not ready. You know, it's not, the organs aren't all done, and it needs time to cook, basically, longer, so that it'll be able to breathe and all that kind of stuff. So I had, I didn't want this video to be too long, so I didn't really go into this, but I did earlier in my pregnancy discover that I had gestational diabetes, and so, which I was monitoring very well, and I was controlling it really well as well, so, you know, that's not a huge thing. It does suck though, because when you're pregnant and you crave something, you know, most people can just go and have what they're craving, but when you have gestational diabetes, you can't. You really have to be careful on what you're having, so that it doesn't raise your blood sugar, because I wasn't on insulin or anything at that point. But anyways, the medication they had given, because they thought I was going to have him super early, they had given me steroids to help develop the baby's lungs, if, you know, as much as they could, in case he was born early. So I was in the hospital for a week that time, and stopped the contractions with this medication. And yeah, but it was not a fun week, I can say that. And I couldn't even really like read, or I had people visit me and we would try to play games, or, you know, like a card game or something, and I could hardly do that because it was like, the vision was off. But I had the best nurse. I can't remember her name, but she was absolutely amazing. She would like come in, she would rub my back because it hurt so bad from obviously being pregnant and laying down a lot, but also from this medication. She was just amazing, and she would come in and play games with me, and, you know, whatever I was able to do when she had the time, she basically would just come in and make it so much more tolerable to be in the hospital for, a week on bed rest, where all I could do was get up to go to the bathroom and shower. Anyways, they decided I was okay to go home, so I went home, and I was on, I had to take a medication at home to keep the contractions from coming back, and I was in and out of the hospital a few different times with his pregnancy for contractions and stuff, but I was able to get to, I hit 37 weeks, and that was right around Valentine's Day. And I remember being like, I was at 37 weeks, which, is somewhat considered full term. So she took me off of the medication, most of the way off of the medication. I was still on a very, very light dose, but I remember Valentine's Day, I asked her if I could, her being my doctor, if I could go to the movies on a date. She said yes, so we did. And a side note, my doctor, my OBGYN, was a friend, because I was her nanny for her kids for 2 years before this, and during my pregnancy, before I went into preterm labor, I was still working for her part-time. And so we, knew each other on a personal level too, not just a doctor relationship. So I remember calling her and asking her if she thought it would be okay if we went to the movies, and she said, yeah, it'd be, that's fine. So I slowly went off of the medications that stopped the contractions, and ended up, when I went off of them completely, ended up having him 2 days later. But it was funny. So my friend's birthday is at the end of February, and she was going to the Coeur d'Alene casino, and they were going to stay the night out there and have this little party and stuff. And so I had been cleared to go, since I was pretty much full term now, which I felt overdue, because they told me at 32 weeks that I would be lucky if I made it to 35 weeks. So I felt like I was overdue, because they told me, don't count on being pregnant longer than that. But I was happy, don't get me wrong. I was happy, because the longer the baby's in there, every hour counts. And so, but at 38 weeks, I went to her birthday party out at the Coeur d'Alene Resort, and we went into the pool, and the pool was like the best experience of my life. Not really, but one of. I remember, because, it was the end of my pregnancy, I was having like back pains and all that stuff, because, well, you're carrying a watermelon. And so I got in the pool, and it was like heaven. It was a bathwater type pool. I mean, it was like a really warm pool. And I remember just like laying in that pool and like feeling like all the stress on my body just go away. And I was just, floating in this pool. Well, my friend had a daughter who was 2 years old. And then she'd had, I can't remember exactly how old he was, but the baby was like 7 months, I think, or something. But anyway, they had a kiddie pool that was attached to the big pool. And I was sitting in the kiddie pool, and I tried to get up, and I could not get up. And then we were all laughing so hard because I couldn't get up. And my friend's husband, who I knew really well, we were good friends. He was like, "You look like a beached whale." And I probably did. I was like trying to get up, couldn't get up. I ended up having to scoot and like roll into the big pool so that I could get up and out of the water. But yeah. And something else I learned, that thing where you put your hands up on the side of the pool and you hoist yourself up and out? You can't do that when you're pregnant. It does not work. Like, you can't. It just doesn't work. I ended up having to, walk over to the stairs. And we were all dying laughing because I tried and I didn't even think about the fact that, like, I had this huge belly that would stop and prevent me from being able to do that. But anyways, so I made it to 38 weeks. I was at the same friend's house. Her name is Jamie. She is one of my best friends. We met in high school. And anyways, I was at her house and that night, and we were having we had Pizza Hut for dinner, and my husband was at home. He had to work the next day, and so I was kind of, I don't know, it wasn't late, but it was, later in the evening. And so we had Pizza Hut, and I remember that I had, I can't remember what I had. I just remember it was spicier than normal. And because my friend was like, oh yeah, spicy things, it'll help you go into labor. I'm like, well, not that I need help with that, but yeah. At this point, my doctor was like, he's fine to be born. So, anyway, so I ended up like starting to having contractions regular at her house. And she's like, oh, let's go. We need to go to the hospital and get you checked. And I'm like, I'm fine. I've been having, at this point, I literally, you guys, I've been walking around having contractions every 5 minutes for the last 2 weeks of my pregnancy. And so I kind of got used to them, but they were never like so bad that I couldn't breathe through them or anything. But she insisted on, let's go to the hospital and get you checked out and make sure. And I was like, all right. So I called my husband and I said, she's going to take me. Don't worry about coming. I'm sure that they're going to send me home because, like I said, I had already been having contractions for the last 2 weeks. And so anyway, so we get to the hospital and they check me in and they say, yeah, you're in labor. And this, it's real labor, but you're in such an early stage of labor that, it's better if you go home and you relax and you, in your own bed and you sleep. And then in the morning, come back because by then, you'll probably start going into, what they consider active labor. And so we said, okay, so they decided that they wanted to give me some medication so that I could go home and basically sleep till the morning and come back the next day. So at this point, I didn't know. So they said they were giving me 2 medications. The name was Loratab, the other was Ambien. I didn't know what Ambien was at the time, and I didn't know what Loratab was because I knew Loratab from the name hydrocodone or Vicodin. Those were the names I knew. I didn't know Loratab from, I just didn't know what that was. So, but I trusted the nurses, and so, but little did they know that Vicodin or hydrocodone can make me pretty dang kooky. And then adding Ambien on top of that, on the way, so we're driving home. I remember little bits of this, but I remember thinking, like, where are we? And seeing, like, everything looked like it was, like, fluorescent lights and everything. By the time I'm home, I can't walk straight anymore. So she had to go in and get my husband. They practically carried me in to bed, and I was out like a light. And they thought, yes, she's going to go home, sleep for, 8 hours or something. She'll come back when she's, in more labor, and then, we thought we'd be fine. So, we told my friend, we'll call you in the morning, and because my friend was going to be with me, when I had the baby. And so I had been with her for her second, because her first, she lived in Illinois, and I wasn't able to be there for the birth of her daughter, but I was for the birth of her son. And it's an amazing experience to watch a child be born. It really is. But yeah, so anyways, we get home at about midnight, I want to say, and by 2 a.m. I was awake with and those drugs, they didn't even matter anymore. I was awake, alert, and it was killing me. And so I got up and went and took a bath. I thought, okay, I'll go take a bath, I'll relax, try to get till the morning and everything like they said. And I'm in the bath and I'm just like, this is not early labor anymore. This is like the real deal. This is active labor. And I knew it. And so I remember yelling to wake up my husband, and he was like kind of out of it. And I remember yelling, you need to wake up and be in a good mood because I am having this baby. So he came in the bathroom. He helped. Okay, so back to the story. So after I called him into the bathroom, he came in, he helped me get out of the bathtub, he helped me get dressed, all that stuff. I remember going out to the couch to call my mom and let her know that like we were going in, this was it, because she was going to come. And anyway, so she could tell by the way I was talking that I was like in real labor and not in the beginning anymore. That this was like progressing faster than, I was thinking. And so she's like, you need to leave now. And I said, I know, I'm ready. I'm waiting for Seth. And I remember seeing him like walking through the kitchen, getting ready and like doing his hair and all this. And I was like, we need to go. And, and he was like, oh no. And he's a turtle when it comes to like going places. He's not a quick person he's just not. I don't know how to explain it, but it takes him forever to get ready to go. And so, anyways, and to his defense in this particular time, we'd been to the hospital numerous times with contractions and all this, and they always stopped him but this was different. This was it, and I don't think he believed that it was it. I really don't. Anyway, so we're on our way there. It's the middle of the night. The hospital was across the town because my doctor, who I was, her nanny for a good while, so we knew each other well. She lived about 45 minutes away, so the hospital she worked at was not the one that was closest to us by any means. But, knowing her personally, I was more than willing to drive somewhere because, having a doctor you trust and you really believe that will do what's right for you and your child, it's by far worth it. So, anyway, so we're driving on the freeway to get there, and I am like, sitting on my seat sideways because it is just so intense. And I remember looking over, we're on the freeway, there is like not a car to be seen. And I remember looking over at the speedometer and that he was going exactly the speed limit. And I remember being like, you need to go fast. And he's like, it's all right, we're fine, and I'm like, no, you need to go fast. I'm thinking in my head, like, first of all, there's nobody out here. Second of all, if we get pulled over, they're going to give us a dang escort to the hospital because it's obvious that I am, like, about to have this baby. I still don't think at this point my husband believed it was real. So I'm like, this is it. Like, I'm going to have this baby, like, soon. You need to go. So anyway, we get to the hospital. So he calls the hospital on the way there, telling them we're coming and everything. And we get there, and I remember the guy, like, wheeling a wheelchair over to the car. And I am not a person that yells at people. I don't get mad. Even if I'm really mad at someone, I don't usually show it. I'm pretty non-confrontational. Sorry, guys, I'm losing my voice here. Anyways, I'm pretty non-confrontational. But when he pulled up with the wheelchair and opened my door and he kind of grabbed my arm to help me out, I was like in the middle of a contraction and I kind of yelled at the guy. I was like, wait a minute, you know. Anyway, so he waits. And he gets me in the wheelchair and he gets me so my husband goes and parks the car and the guy wheels me over to labor and delivery, and the nurse, she, you know, helps me get into the gown, all that good stuff that they do, and she's checking me as my husband comes in, and she's like, you're 8.5 centimeters. And I'm like, yeah. And I kind of looked at him and I'm like, I told you, like, I told you this was not early labor anymore. So yeah, I went from 2 centimeters to 8.5 centimeters within just a few hours. And so at this point, they typically will not, I think it's past 8 centimeters. They don't do, typically do epidurals anymore. It's kind of like past that point, that they will, but we called our doctor because she was not on call that night. And so my husband calls her and says, you know, she's best in labor, and she's like, because she wanted us to let her know so that she could be the one to deliver Alex. And so she's like, oh my gosh, she's like, her husband happened to be out of town, and so she couldn't just leave. So she's like, I gotta get a babysitter, but do not let her have the baby without me. So she calls the hospital and gives them clear instructions to let me have the epidural because there's otherwise no way that she's going to make it in time. So the anesthesiologist comes in, and at this point I'm thinking still that I'm going to have to do it. No epidural because, you know, it's past that point. Well, the anesthesiologist comes in and says that my doctor's ordered an epidural and all this. And I was fine with that. I, you know, had already done the beginning, yeah, all the way up to, by the time he got to the room, I was almost 10 centimeters. So he gave me an epidural, and I don't know how much you know about epidurals, but epidurals can go, they can do them, and then they can turn them down so that you can feel some things, but not everything. That way you can feel the contractions, and you can feel so that you can push and everything. Well, they gave me the epidural that I could feel nothing at that point because she wanted me to wait. My water hadn't broke, so I didn't have like that immense pressure yet down there because I, you know, hadn't lost my water yet. So anyways, I remember at this point, I'm fine. Like, I was sitting there talking and just, I felt great. My friend got there and she was braiding my hair, and you know, my mom got there, my mother-in-law got there, everybody was coming, and I actually sat at 10 centimeters for an hour and a half excuse me, waiting for the doctor. So she gets there and she breaks my water, turns my epidural down, and we started pushing. Well, yeah, if you get real squeamish, then I'm warning you now. I mean, it's not like horrible, but some people get real squeamish with any kind of talk like this, so I just wanted to give you guys a fair warning. So I was pushing, and it felt like forever. An hour went by, and you know, they kept promising me that I was progressing. I was moving the baby down because I was, you know, starting to get pretty tired at this point. And there was one point where I was done. I was like, I can't do it anymore. This isn't working. You know, and I kind of started to panic a little bit, I think. And Seth kind of turned to me and he said, calm down, you're okay. And I instantly just was quiet. And my doctor, keep in mind, I was her nanny. For 2 years, she knew me really well. because I stayed with them, overnight. She was around me a lot, we'll say that. And she goes, I cannot believe, I've never seen a husband say that before and have the wife actually instantly calm down. Typically, women get, either worse, don't change, or, all that stuff. But so anyways, and I said, oh no, I'm not calm. I was just imagining like shoving my fist up his butt and telling him to calm down. And everybody laughed, and I'm just like, and with that, I remember like then I kind of laughed and kind of just, it chilled me out because it took my mind off it for a minute. But she's like, I can't believe you said that. She goes, I've never heard you ever talk like that at all. And I don't think she's ever seen me get upset with anybody either, because I just tend to I have a lot of patience, I guess, for people. And so anyways, I continue to push, and I really felt like I was doing absolutely no good at this point. And I didn't want a mirror in the beginning because, like, I don't want to see that. Like, what it's doing to me. No, I didn't want to see that. But they, you can only push for so long before they start to consider a C-section. And I'm like, I did not do all of this work to then have to go and have surgery. So they said, the mirror can really be helpful, because then you can see that what you're doing, and that you're progressing, so that you don't just give up. So I agreed to try, and so they gave me the mirror, and with the next contraction, and I was pushing, and I could see his head, and as I could see his head, as I stopped pushing, I can see it. I can see it not as much anymore, like it going back, and I was like, oh no, like that is not gonna happen. And with that, I had him. So the mirror really did work. It gave me that like reassurance, I think, that I was actually doing something. And so that did it. So I was really glad, because I did not have to have a C-section after all of that. And I did tear quite a bit, but that's just comes with it. And some people do, some people don't. But yeah, so he was born, he was 6 pounds, 12 ounces, and he would have been a big baby if he would have went, to 40 weeks, because at this point it was 37 and a half. I was almost at 38 weeks. And so, yeah, he would have been a big boy if I would have made it. But at this point he wasn't. He was real little. He's not even 7 pounds. But he had a big head, though. His head was like, I can't remember exactly. I think it was 13 or 14 inches. But, babies' heads are always, of course, they seem so big compared to their bodies. But he came out perfectly healthy, completely, his lungs were fine. He was totally fine. He didn't cry, even when they gave him the shots that they do right away. And they prick their foot also to check like blood sugars and stuff. And he didn't cry. And even with all of that, he didn't really cry. And they actually want the babies to cry, because that actually helps get all the crap out of their lungs, and it actually helps develop their lungs for breathing air and all that. But he was a really chill baby, and he was just a calm baby. I don't know what else to say. I, of course, cried when he was born, and I don't know who else cried. I don't recollect that, but I did, which was funny. I told my mother-in-law, because I had 3 nurses in the room, because I also at one point almost passed out because I was losing so much blood, and I was very quickly awoke by 2 shots going into one in each leg to stop the bleeding that, whatever medication it is that they give you to stop the bleeding. Well, the shots in each leg, that woke me right up. And this was in the middle of, pushing, but I had 3 nurses because of the hemorrhaging that I was doing during labor. 3 nurses, 1 doctor, my mom, my dad, which my dad didn't plan on being in there during the actual delivery, but my mom and dad had gone down for breakfast, and when they came back, they were like, yeah, she's, about to have a baby, so they both kind of rushed in, and as my dad came in, there came my son. So my dad ended up being in there too, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my best friend, and Seth. I believe there was 10 people in the room. There was a lot of people in the room when he was born, and which was funny because as they took him over to the incubator to kind of clean him up, get him ready, get him wrapped up so they could bring him back to me, I'm laying there with the doctor and like abandoned by everybody because they want to go see the baby. But my sister lived across the state, and so she of course wanted us to call her when I went into labor, but with everything it kind of happened so fast that we weren't able to. But I called her right afterwards, and there's actually a picture of me, legs still up in the stirrups, and I'm talking on the phone to my sister, letting her know that we had him. Okay, as I discussed before yesterday, if you watched my video, Whip It Wednesday, I'm having issues with storage on my phone, so it keeps stopping my recording, so then I have to go in and try to delete something so I can finish this dang video. It's really getting on my nerves, so I'm hoping I can even get this video to you guys. But anyways, as I was saying real quick, I'm going to end it fast. Yeah, so I called my sister while I was still, in the stirrups and everything. But he was healthy and happy, and yeah, it went really well for my first baby. I didn't have a lot of problems. I healed quickly, was able to go home right away. His lungs were fully developed and all that good stuff that, needs to happen. So, yeah, everything, with his birth was pretty great. And especially since we were able to get to that point where we knew that he would be okay, considering, we had thought we were going to have him a lot earlier than we did. So, anyways, but he is now a healthy, happy 13-year-old. That drives me crazy because, well, he's 13, but I love him anyways, and I would do it all again. So, yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and that you guys have a rest of your days wonderful, and even if it is kind of crappy weather or dark outside or whatever, that you make it a beautiful one.